Okay, welcome back to round 4 of this league. We are currently 2-1. We are on the play versus an opponent who has 60 cards, so not a mirror. Lurrus, all right. We will keep this hand. It may just be burn, but there's also a chance that it is Jund, which would make for a very interesting grindy matchup. Seems like this may be either Jund or some form of Death Shadow. Our opponent Inquisitions us. And they take Search for Azcanta. Makes me think they're concerned about the game going long, but also it doesn't really make a ton of sense to take green cards if we don't have any green mana. That did change though. So we'll go ahead and play Abundant Growth on this forest. Interesting, we have a decision here between playing Uro or Thought Scour plus Deprive. Without an extra land, Uro might not be the strongest play here, but if we do hit an extra land, then we're able to also Thought Scour ourselves, which would set us up very nicely to bring Uro back next turn. However, our opponent is threatening to play Lurrus here, which definitely should be something that we're aware of, and I think for that reason, we are going to pass with Deprive up. There's also a lot of upside to Thought Scouring ourselves. On their turn, we could hit something like Icefang Codal or a Terminus. So let's go ahead and Thought Scour ourselves now. We hit a Mystic Sanctuary. Okay, we're not going to deprive that. We'll let Thoughtseize resolve here. It does let them deploy Death Shadow, but depriving has a very high cost of returning a land to our hand. And if we draw another land in the next 2 draw steps, then we'll be able to be on path to play Terminus on turn 5, which is very strong. Our opponent deploys Kroxa. A risky play from our opponent. We'll discard the Terminus, and now if we draw any island, we're able to set up Terminus. Although, to be fair, I guess our opponent has only committed 1 creature to the board, so Terminus isn't that scary. We do get that island, though. If our opponent doesn't commit another creature, we can just put Path on top, and then we can play Path and bring back Uro. And if our opponent does play another creature, we can put Terminus on top. So it's kind of a little bit of a rock and a hard place situation for our opponent. Alright, they thought sees us. Can't do anything about that. Okay, so in order to play Uro next turn, we would have to fetch a green source because our only green source is this forest. So because our opponent decided not to play another creature, I'm going to go ahead and fetch a breeding pool tapped. And then I'll put Path to Exile on top and bring back Uro. And then I'm going to be able to put this Flooded Strand into play, putting my opponent in a really difficult spot because they either have to commit more or they are just going to lose to Uro, or if they commit less, then I just Path to Exile their Tarmogoyf. And if they overcommit, then I get to put Terminus on top and play Terminus. Our opponent dismembers Uro to make it a 1/1, and then Tar fires it. Okay. So Uro dies. Actually, not a horrible thing for us, as I'm going to Path to Exile here. We know we have access to Yorion if we would like, but it's also possible that we'll just put Path back on top again. Our opponent plays Lurrus, and they can bring back Mishra's Bauble. Our opponent getting dangerously low on life makes me think that Yorion is actually a very good play here. So I'm going to go ahead and Mystic Sanctuary, Terminus. The reason I choose a Terminus here instead of Path to Exile is because I don't want to give my opponent another basic in case they play a Forest. And other than that, it's basically the same thing. Alright. Yorion should lock up this game, that otherwise would be kind of close, but I think it's very unlikely my opponent's able to remove it. They already used one Dismember, and yeah, they concede. Sweet. Yorion doing some work there, earning its keep. For this matchup, we'll bring in... So Veil of Summer definitely comes in. Soulguard Lantern is interesting, because our opponent is a Lurrus deck, and they are a deck that plays Tarmogoyf, so sometimes exiling a key creature type from the graveyard can be good, especially if we're able to exile their Mishra's Bauble early, which would significantly reduce the effectiveness of Lurrus. Cards that are not good. Force of Negation definitely doesn't seem great in this matchup. Cryptic Command doesn't seem phenomenal, as they're trying to go under us, and we want to play more low to the ground against them. I think I'm not very excited about the Soul Guide Lanterns in this matchup particularly, but I am potentially also interested in these Aether Gusts. So let's see if there's anything else that we're interested in cutting. This Deprive is probably worse than an Aether Gust. Games that don't go very long, Deprive is not as good because it's really a card that you want to draw late game as a way to reset one of your Mystic Sanctuaries. Let's go ahead and cut one more Cryptic. Jace the Mind Sculptor is great because often this deck only deploys one threat, and if you're able to play Jace and minus on that threat, then it's a pretty big tempo swing, and they might even have to waste a Steel of Fire or a Lightning Bolt on Jace. But other than that, Jace has a decent chance of running away with the game. Let's try that. So far, what we saw from our opponent was more of a Death Shadow deck, but if they do show us more aggressive elements, such as Monastery Surf Spear and Soulscar Mage, then we can consider bringing in Weather the Storm. But for now, without seeing spells like Manamorphose, I don't think Weather the Storm warrants a spot. I'd say this is just about the dream hand. Obviously, you don't want Terminus in your starting hand, but other than that, very happy with this one. We'll give our opponent the bad news. Obviously, now I'm definitely going to lose this game after being so confident. Astrolabe, probably the correct pick for our opponent, as it just does so many things, especially for this draw. Taking Astrolabe definitely significantly reduces the effectiveness of Icefang Codal, if their plan was to do that and then maybe use another discard spell to take Path to Exile. Renin 6. Interesting. Okay. So they're a more grindy deck, and maybe they just so happened to. It's unclear if this is a Death Shadow deck still. The good news is Icefang Codal's an instant. I'm going to fetch an island here and opt. This at least keeps up the illusion that maybe I'd play Force of Negation. And also, I probably was just going to be opting anyways. I will draw Flooded Strand. Alright, so our opponent will have access to lots of lands, and we will eventually have to answer this Renin 6. But for now, I don't think it's that big of a problem. And we'll just continue to play our own game and answer their threats individually. Yorion definitely seems like it might be a great answer to Renin 6. A 4/5 flyer just very difficult for Jund to answer. Their only answer really is Dismember and Assassin's Trophy. It's unclear if our opponent's even playing that card. Gonna hold off on doing anything for now. Our opponent knows that we have Path to Exile Icefang Codal, so I assume they're gonna play around it, but that's also fine with us. If they do attack, we'll definitely attempt to trade our Codal. Go to Plains. Alright, trade successful. Croxa. I'm probably going to discard Terminus here, but the question is if I want to Path to Exile the Croxa now. I think that's a little bit aggressive. Our opponent doesn't have that many cards in their graveyard, and if I were to Path to Exile, then I wouldn't have an answer to Lurrus in my hand, which is definitely a little bit risky. Our opponent maybe has a Death Shadow here. Unearth, Croxa. Okay. That's also okay. I'll discard Opt. Omen of the Sea has more value because I can blink it with Yorion, which is probably something that I will be considering next turn. Our Renin 6 going up to 6 means it's going to be threatening an ultimate very soon, which I do need to find an answer to. Okay. So I think we are best served passing with Omen of the Sea up. Omen of the Sea will dig us closer to Aether Gust, Cryptic Commands. Those are some of our best outs, although we did cut some Cryptic Commands. It's also definitely very possible that we can grind through a Ren 6 ultimate if our opponent is low resources in terms of lands in hand. So it's not the end of the world, but it would make life a lot harder for us. It's also possible we're just supposed to jam Uro here. I actually think I am going to do that. It's more mana efficient, and if we end up hitting another land, then we can get to do both of Uro and Omen of the Sea. We do hit a land, so we'll pass. We can answer most of our opponent's creatures, so not too concerned about that. Just really focused on getting our opponent's Croaks or Ren and 6 off the board before it starts unleashing a ton of unearths on us. Our opponent plays Lurrus, which is going to bring back Tarmogoyf. Okay. That's not a huge problem yet. I'm going to play Omen of the Sea this turn to be mana efficient. Jace and Abundant Growth. Bottom. Really looking for Aether Gust or Cryptic Command here. Mystic Sanctuary. So that allows me to set up Terminus if I wanted to. If I could just go ahead and path the Lurrus now. Well, let's okay, let's bring back Uro to start and see what happens from that. We'll exile the creature from our graveyard in case they play Scavenging Ooze, as we have no way to recur our own creatures. Actually should have exiled Astrolabe as well. A bit of a misstep on my part, as now Tarmogoyf will deal more damage. We still are able to block it. Okay, do we want to put... No. Okay. I still don't think we want to play Mystic Sanctuary here. It'd be putting Opt on top. We're definitely not interested in Terminus here, as Uro is one of the best things we have going for us, and putting on the bottom of our deck would definitely be pretty bad. So we are interested in maybe firing off a Path to Exile on Lurrus right now, or in our opponent's draw step at least. So let's just do that instead. I don't think they have any actual. I guess doing it in their draw step means that Fatal Push is now active. So maybe that's a bit of a mistake if they do a Fatal Push here. It's going to be a little bit of an uphill grind now as we try to take on this Ren and 6 ultimate. It'll be interesting to see if our opponent even does decide to run ultimate Ren and 6. Maybe they'll continue getting value with Ren and 6 and nurturing Peatland after they just drew that. But that does give us an extra draw step, so hoping our opponent doesn't have any removal. They do ultimate Ren and 6. So, and their Tarmogoyf grows. So, not exiling the Astrolabe, coming back to haunt us a little bit. They're going to unearth their Kroxa. We'll discard Condemn first. My guess is they're going to unearth it twice. Yes, they do. Okay. This is not honestly the biggest deal. If we're able to, we can activate Omen of the Sea in our upkeep, and that should let us find a land. It does not. Okay, so we'll go bottom. Veil of Summer is interesting. I think we should instead try to redraw. Ice Fang Kodal. Potentially good, potentially not. Really depends, I guess. Alright, we're going to pass here. Kind of a nightmare scenario here, where we did not find the land. If we found one land there, any fetch land or Mystic Sanctuary, we would have been able to take care of our opponent's Tarmogoyf and, start attacking with our Uro. Now we will not have that luck. If our opponent brings back Kroxa here, then we'll have to Ice Fang in response, obviously. Aether Gust. Well, would have been a good one to not have to discard, but you never know. Our opponent's still in a little bit of an awkward spot in the sense that if they decide to attack, then we're able to attack back. And now that we have the Ice Fang Kodal to block, Tarmogoyf really doesn't attack very profitably. So we're just going to get to go ahead and untap. Again, opt looking for any fetch land. Scalding Turn will do. Although now we know that our opponent has the ability to... Alright, so let's get Mystic Sanctuary. And we're very comfortable, quote-unquote, suiciding our Uro, because it's not actually suicide. It just means that if they do block with Tarmogoyf, we get to bring it back again. So we're going to go ahead and do this. And path to exile Kroxa. And if they block with Tarmogoyf, then we'll get to replay it and exile the Astrolabe from our graveyard, and then Tarmogoyf will shrink and Tarmogoyf dies. So they actually should not be blocking here, assuming they don't have anything. So a bit of a misstep from our opponent, although I don't blame them, as sometimes Tarmogoyf is tricky to manage, hard to remember. So Tarmogoyf is actually going to shrink 2 sizes. 1 for removing lands, and 1 for removing artifacts. And our opponent concedes, so we defeated a Renin 6 emblem. Pretty nice achievement unlocked there. And I will see you for the last match of this league.